Everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second session in the accessible online tools for contextualized learning. This is a session and a series that we will be holding. It's our mini professional development institute developed between Aussie Adult and Family Education with the University of the District of Columbia, our professional development partner, to meet the needs of DC providers and partners. We have 7 sessions. We held the session on IT business administration this morning. This afternoon's 1-hour session from 2 to 3 today is about hospitality. Then we hope you'll join us at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. tomorrow. 10 a.m. when we do healthcare and 2 p.m. when we do construction. There's no registration or pre-registration required, so we'll continue to blast out the notices, and we hope that you'll join us as your schedule allows. Please know that we are recording each of these sessions to be posted on the Aussie Professional Development website with all of our past mini professional development institutes as well, where you can find all of the materials and video recordings there. We are going to ask you to mute yourselves while you're listening to the presenter, but you also have the ability to unmute yourself when there are times for questions. So please use the unmute feature or the chat feature, whichever one is easiest for you today. We put in a link to the location of today's materials. We'll put it in again so that it's right there at your fingertips, but it's appeared in the chat a couple of times. And it is blog.mustsseed.org, but I'll put it in so you can copy and paste it right in. And so our facilitator today is Megan Farrell. Thank you, Megan, and please tell us more about hospitality resources.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Michelle. I'm really excited to connect again with DC educators. I'm up here in Ohio, and I'm going to be bringing you some information on hospitality today. But first, I want to let you see how you can get connected to this session, some of the resources. So when you go to, as you just mentioned, blog.mustsseed.org, you're going to see, as we go through each session, the most recent blog post, which is on the top left, is always going to be whatever our most recent session was. And if you do follow the site, you'll continue to get updates as I do other professional development. But if we click on hospitality right now, it will open up to a little description, and then here's our slideshow, so you can click through there if you like. And then we also have our contextualized lesson plans. This document is going to be reused or continue to to be used through all of our sessions. And what we have here is our templates and our sample lessons and links to all the resources that we will be talking about throughout the entire week, all in one place. So to get started, so a little bit about me. My name is Megan. Hi. And in addition to the work I do in professional development, in adult education, and curriculum development, my other hat is as a woodworker. I'm in religious education. So I make wooden materials for churches and schools, and we are starting to get into working with families as well. And I lead a small artisan team. So I'll talk a little bit about, as we go along, I'm sure, some of the joys and challenges that come with being a small business owner, and I'm sure do a lot of the things that you're supporting other folks to do. So I've kind of seen that from both sides, the kind of things, retooling and all of that. So I'm really, really grateful. You have a lot of wonderful resources between Aussie and University of District of Columbia for professional development in DC. So I look forward to going into some of those in more depth throughout the session. But our big question for today, can teaching save lives? When it comes to hospitality, doing things like washing hands, right? We know this saves lives. We know that, if you have people who are cleaning and sanitizing correctly, that can make the difference between somebody going to the hospital or somebody being able to eat out um, at restaurants and enjoy being part of the community in that way. So hospitality makes a big difference. As long as we really focus on some of those essential skills, as our learners master these things, they become more marketable themselves. So it's become, I think, public health has always been an issue, but I think just in our day and age, we just really see how important your role is as educators in preparing folks for how to create a safe environment for everyone to thrive. So our goal today is to think about some ways that we can make some of those lessons, some of those things that might seem even a little mundane, like washing hands, how to make them really engaging, how to make sure that our students never have to ask us, why do I need to know this, right? How do we make sure that what we're presenting to them, whether it's individually as tutors and individual apprenticeships that we were talking about with DCHR, or whether we're doing large group programs, whether we're working in small groups, how do we keep people engaged and across the wide spectrum of adults' learning levels? Because we know there are some folks who really have some big gaps in math and language. So I'm going to show you a template for how to create a contextualized lesson plan. This can be something that you tailor to your audience, depending on who you're working with, how you're going to deliver it. Lesson plans nowadays have to be extremely flexible, right? Because we never know from one day to the next if we're going to be meeting in person. Are we going to have to meet online? Are we, going to have the government shut down and wait to come back to class till everything's worked out? So, when things are in flux and we have to flex, that's when these adaptive lesson plans that have a lot of online resources are so incredibly useful. I'll give you that template, but actually walk you through step by step a lesson plan designed for hospitality, specifically for adult learners, and then end with a list of tools just for you in Washington, D.C., some of the wonderful resources you have available to you to take advantage of. Now, I'm a big believer in, even though we're using all of this tech, right, in our webinars and everything else, I still believe in taking notes, and the research bears that out. As you talk and share things, I take little notes down about what things look like for you. And so, but what you're going to want to take notes on is not necessarily what I'm saying, but the things that stand out to you, the kind of things that you're going to want to say tomorrow, next week, next month. You're going to say, oh, yeah, we talked about that in that one session. I wish I had written it down, right? You will remember it more if you write it down than if you just listen to me or hear it on the screen. So those are the kind of highlights you want to look for. So we're going to talk about contextualized curriculum and contextualized learning. So contextualize, to bring that down, all of our sessions have this word as the center point. And what that means is we're looking at context, real world context, right? We're looking for the nitty gritty, day to day. What are things that our students, our adult learners, our apprentices, our tutees going to apply, either a context that they're familiar with or something that looks very close to what they're going to encounter. And a curriculum just means that we present that context while still connecting it to the kind of academic standards that they need to know. So your template, again, we had this at our blog here. I'm down in this document right here, and you can either scroll in this document or you can click right and left on the bottom here. So we're in our table of contents. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these instructional strategies, but we're going to pop on over to page number 7 so you can see there is the lesson plan with notes. So there's 2 versions of this lesson plan, one with kind of prompts to tell you, make some suggestions for things you could put into each section. And then there's one that is just entirely blank, and you just fill in all the information that you want. It's up here as a PDF for the sake of our session, but also will be available along with the recording on the OSCE website as a Word document so that you can download it and change it and make it yours. So my sample lesson, this was this morning's session, IT Business Administration and Finance. And we're looking at hospitality. So these lessons, the sample lessons that I'm showing you are adapted from a contextualized curriculum I did here in our Northeast Ohio region. One of our regional organizations is called the Literacy Cooperative. And back in 2014, with the new WIOA standards and all of that, we had a real need in our community to have something that was localized resources to help people kind of implement this new integrated education and training, making sure they're tackling some of the academic issues while they're tackling trades, or if they're doing GD prep, to make sure they're using real world things, just partnering that together. So the contextualized curriculum here is, and actually that's one. And I should mention too, I don't usually present with all of these different tabs open at the same time. I know it looks a little messy, but we're going to be going back and forth between all of them, so I don't want to lose you. So the Literacy Cooperative does provide this curriculum for free. So this is one of the many resources you have available to you. And if you're not logged in, if you're just going to this site for the first time, it will ask you to register. It is completely free, but it is also the grant funding that we got to create these resources. Also, it's also an action resource kind of field research project. So after you sign up, you will. It can take a little bit of time to get approval, and I'm saying like minutes or hours, not weeks. But once you have access, you can download these documents in 5 different industries that we here in Northeast Ohio saw as our kind of high growth, especially for our entry-level workers. So we did this starting in 2014, had a bunch of actual teachers giving their actual lesson plans, or we had specific organizations that really wanted us to build something that would help bring up those academic skills in their trade. So real life lesson plans, they were then implemented, and a lot of programs piloted it. They gave us feedback. After registration, you'll get at least once a year a survey saying, how are you using this? How can we improve it? What's the best part about it? And we take that back to our funders, and after 5 years, we said, we've gotten some good feedback about how we can improve this. And, after 5 years, so many of the links are dead and all of that. So we refreshed, reformatted the curriculum, and I was the editor on that. So the first round I contributed as an instructor writing lesson plans, and the second time around I took everything and reformatted it into one format, which is what your template comes out of. So very roughly, that template is kind of the structure we kind of look to use in all of the lessons across all the subjects. All right, so we are looking at when you're logged in, once you have access, you have, if you scroll all the way to the bottom or you look on the side of the page, you'll see the 5 industries listed, and hospitality is, of course, one of them. So we're going to take a peek into one of those lessons. And in particular, this this whole session, I'm just going to show you one lesson. There's 24 lessons. It came out of our county community college, Cuyahoga Community College, their culinary program, which is just an award-winning program. It's really excellent. They have a training restaurant right in downtown Cleveland, where it's just a great place to go eat, and you also know that you're supporting the learning going on in that program. So they do a 12-week program, and it's specifically for English language learners. This class, this contextualized curriculum that we developed. So this is our lesson is from week 1, day B. So this is like the second day, right? And it works with folks all the way at the bottom NRS levels. So you may have some very, very beginning English speakers in this session. But the goal is to really focus on vocabulary. Every session starts with vocabulary and goes through kind of a structured format, and then starts into the contextualizing for the hospitality field. So all of these, all of our contextualized curriculum are centered on 3 key strategies. So as a woodworker, I know you can have a great tool, but if you don't use it in the right way, then it's not going to work well for you, right? So we can give you all these wonderful resources, and I'm just going to, really give you so much that you can work with. But really, the big key is using strategies that are really going to engage our learners, right? So those 3 key strategies: interdisciplinary, always teach 2 things at once, right? We're always doing trades and English language instruction, or we're doing social studies and math together at one time. We're going to contextualize it. So we're going to make sure that the kind of examples we're going to use are not going to be Johnny in 4th grade wants to share an apple with his friend, right? We want to use real adult context and get as concrete and as real world as possible. I like to call this hyper local, right? You are the one who knows what's going on in your neighborhood. You're the one who knows who's hiring. You're the one who knows what your previous graduates have been doing, and you can share those stories. So getting into a real world context really helps motivate learners to continue in the program if they see how it's going to apply. And then differentiation is our heart lock, because it really does open the heart for students to see that you can adapt what you're doing to the level where they are functioning. So we'll talk a little bit about how we do that in our session, but I really want to hammer in on the contextualizing when it comes to this lesson plan. So the way we contextualize, just thinking, I'm going to go line by line, well, not quite line by line, but a little more in depth into the lesson plan in a minute, but just big picture, we are contextualizing our English language instruction to this hospitality environment. So we kick it off by making sure that the vocabulary that we introduced at the beginning of the lesson all has to do with real world industry. And then we help the learner process that and master that by using all these wonderful ELA strategies, right, as adult educators. So using dialogues. And this can be used with really low levels, so you can use some very basic scripts, but you can get much more complicated scripts as you work up your complexity and your grade levels. Students can also create them. They can create the context and act them out and do a little reader's theater. It's really fun. Doing matching sentences is a great way. That's another activity we'll have in this lesson. And then we're also going to have a student self-assessment written at a very low level, but with that industry language, to something that you can use multiple times to help your learners see their own progress as they go along. And also they're practicing reading and writing as well as they're doing that self-assessment. All right, so let's dive into our industry vocabulary. I want to make sure I don't miss a chat over there. So these were originally designed for in-person, right? So one thing we want to think about as we go along is how, if we have to flex, like today, my 13-year-old son is here at the house doing all his classes by, I think they're doing Google Meet because his whole middle school shut down because so many teachers got COVID. So, you know, from one day to the next, we don't know whether we're going to be in person, whether we're going to be online. So, and we already know with adult learners, right? They may not even know from one day to the next. So how do we adapt this? That's something to think about as we go along. So when it comes to vocabulary, you can, you know, be doing it this way, right? But you really want to make sure, even if your learner
Megan, we stopped hearing you for a moment. Megan, you might be muted.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, it's disconnected. We don't even know if we're going to stay connected. I know that has actually happened, I'm sure, CC as well. You have your interruptions at moments to the infrastructure. All right. So you can hear me, you can see me. We're good? Awesome. So, so we're talking about vocabulary. You know, even if your learners may not be able to have the bandwidth to, or have the webcams and all of that to have video, if you can make sure you have that available, that's going to make a big difference when it comes to vocabulary, to be able to show them things in person, things that are acted out. It's a lot of lip reading when it comes to language learning, right, at this level. So then when we're comparing hospitality jobs, one of the big tool that our community college used for their curriculum was the Oxford Picture Dictionary. I just love this resource. It is not a curriculum, so, but it is just really well written, and there's just so many different options. They use the monolingual American English version, but there's all sorts of bilingual dictionaries. There's workbooks, and there's even online versions, class audio, student ebook, right? So again, as we're talking about possibly needing to go online, having a student ebook available version of this, and you can say, hey, if we're in person, you're going to open up your book to page, you know, 192, 193. But if you're online, they can do that too. So it has, with our comparing hospitality jobs, it introduces some some names with photos of people doing those jobs. And then you can kind of compare a few of them to just flesh out what those mean, and then do some practice dialogues, very basic. But again, practicing those speaking skills along with the listening. In this case, we had a whole group instruction. You can adapt that if you're doing individual as well or small group. I know, especially when it comes to this level, like especially a lot of the refugee organizations that are so active right now, but all the time, they do a lot of maybe home-based work, individual work. So you can also kind of do this one-on-one or, with a small family group. And then this match the words to make a sentence is actually a handout right here in the document that was created by the instructor. You can print that out, you can cut it out, or if, again, you're online, there are a couple different ways you can use this. You can take the document and stick it online in Google Classrooms, or you can, if you have a blog like I do, you can stick it, embed it into a post on your website. A lot of folks I know also will email every day right before class, hey, here's your handouts for today, or here's what we're going to be looking at. And folks get in the habit of opening that up. And then, of course, a key for you. But the key is good, too, to give learners an experience of checking themselves. So after we do this kind of a process of introducing, doing kind of direct instruction, doing some practice, doing some exploration, all of our lessons have some kind of section in there where they can do a little bit of personalized learning. So when it comes to hospitality, our program used what's called Training Now. But I know in DC and nationwide, Serve Safe is also a big one. And that was when I was looking at a few of your programs, that seemed to be the very popular certification. So I kind of plug that in there instead of Training Now. But if you're not familiar with Serve Safe, they have several levels of certification for, this is by the National Restaurant Association, starting with your food handler. And a lot of folks require this for employment. So either, if somebody's coming in, they already have the certification, that's really going to help them get in the door and get a job and be able to work right away. Other folks will hire somebody and then they have to, contingent on them being able to go online and pass this certification. But a lot of folks really need this for whatever their licensing is with the public health department, etc. But you can work your way up to doing alcohol, to being a manager, doing allergens, and then instructors, proctors for you all, or administrators, right, where you can see, you can create accounts and you can see how folks have done and print out their certificates when they've lost them, which they will. And, I have one of my best friends from high school was somebody who, started college in one field, got pregnant, dropped out, went into, didn't have money for childcare, so her husband was working during the day. She started working in food service evenings and weekends, started off doing food handler, doing, hostess and server, and then, worked her way up to being a bartender, worked her way up to doing training of others, and having those, working her way up through those roles gave her a lot more flexibility, and then helped her step up into, more expensive restaurants that have, larger tips. And so she really made a really great career out of working in the food industry in part by being able to work her way up through these certifications, all the way up to the instructor level where she's training others. So it's just a really wonderful pathway. Was over here. All right, so some of our lessons have what we call an exit ticket or a formative assessment. This is to give the instructor feedback on how are my students doing? How much did they actually retain of what we did today in this session? So this exit ticket, the I can do it exit ticket comes from a curriculum called Bridging the Employment Gap. So this actually comes out of Canada, and they have a couple different ones, but their kitchen help is really awesome. And I think in here I said what page is, page 49. The one thing that's weird about it is their numbering, because, you know, what's number 6 to us is like VI. So I'm going to actually see if I can click in here. Student activity sheets. All right, so this is, again, scenarios they can practice. Here's our I can do it printable. So I can use a coffee maker. Did I took the training, or I actually did this work? And so these are really again, kind of, this is more at like level 2, NRS level 2, but using a potato peeler, pouring hot drinks, all of those things that I could not pour hot drinks safely in a hospitality setting. when I worked food service, I poured soup on myself. So, you know, don't take these things for granted, right? So assessment, you know, just helps us differentiate. I used that word earlier on in the session. It helps you know how to adjust what you're doing to respond to where that student is, so they don't feel lost or they don't feel bored, right? So here's a few options for you. We have some folks for how to review things if they have not really mastered the language behind this lesson. We have some additional activities for career exploration if they are ready to take the next step when it comes to learning more about the hospitality career. And then we have a few more activities and another what's called a demonstration assessment, where the student does the actual task and you observe them and check off whether or not they've done all the steps in the task. So observational or demonstration assessment. So that's a whole nother section of our Bridging the Employment Gap, which is really great. They offer several of those. So for your looking up your job titles, I wanted to also highlight this resource. That's a really excellent one. You have DC Works here, which that should be silenced, where you can, you know, search by a specific job title. So this is a great way for you to for your students to practice. Okay, I've read this title. I've seen the picture. I read it on the page, and then I have to practice typing it. And they can look for their zip code, search and find what is available right now that I could be applying for. The other resource here is available on the Career Coach DC page. There's a section, if you go to the home page, there's this Careers tab where you can browse by career area. So this is just so nicely organized. It's very clean and easy to understand. So you can look through specific industries, whatever you're doing. In this case, we're looking at hospitality and tourism. And then within hospitality and tourism, you can focus on which area you're preparing folks for. And that's going to depend on, you know, which employers you're connected to in partnership. In our case, it was food and beverage. So I can look in there and I can see I had to check here, top entry-level education. So what are the options for folks with a high school diploma or less, or an associate's degree? So most of food service is on the job training, which I think is a really good option for a lot of our folks. And they can kind of explore what those mean. And then once you click on it, it goes a little bit more in depth into what it looks like. And then here's the other great thing, available programs. So let's say you're a pre-trades program. Maybe you're doing high school fluency preparation, preparing folks. I think it's all the GED test, right, in DC. So you're preparing folks for the GED test. And then you know that they really want to go into culinary and they really want to be a chef, right? So here you go. Here's your programs to get that certification. Wonderful, wonderful resource. And I think I had one last. Oh, I had what is a T-chart? I know that most people probably know this, but you know, again, with adults, you never know what the gaps of knowledge are. So I kind of like reference the T-chart, but this is really just to help folks practicing with their writing, practicing comparing, putting things into categories, compare and contrast. What things are similar go on one side, what things are different go on another. So maybe they can divide those tasks like the way Oxford Picture Dictionary organizes it is it has like a picture that's in the lobby of a hotel is one. And then they have another one that's a picture in a restaurant. And they have different types of restaurants, right? You have your linen cloth kind of restaurants, and then you have your takeout at the food counter kind of restaurants. So they have a couple different pictures. And then they have labels of the different jobs that people are doing in that picture. So you could use that to kind of compare what different jobs are, what different objects are, et cetera, et cetera. A good way to practice vocabulary. So we talked about browsing careers using DC Career Coach as our highlighted resource and our highlighted certification being ServSafe. And here was the last one. So our highlighted program for each industry, I've been kind of going in and grabbing somebody to lift up. I know a lot of folks are doing excellent work in this area, but I went, DC Central Kitchen has been around for a few years. And about 15 years ago, I went to a wedding that they catered, and it was just fabulous. So I've kind of followed them ever since. And so I geek out a little bit over what they do. But they do school food, they do community meals, they do catering, and then they have their culinary job training. And they even have a couple books out about the work they've done. So, and they have a cafe or the kitchen, which does the catering, I believe. It's a 14-week program. So if you are just getting into this area and you kind of want to talk to somebody who's been in it a while, pick their brain, go chat up DC Central Kitchen. And if anybody is from DC Central Kitchen, let me know. Shout out to you. You're doing great work. All right, so our final step, I promise you today to give you a lot of picks for online learning, to kind of give you links in one place. So I want to start off here with, I'm going to close some of these. Clean it up a bit. With what OSCE has to offer. So these are just lists that are already on this page. So they have resources available for adult educators. So if you scroll down, you have a few different options for information here. But if you go below the box, these are kind of your instructional resources. So you have Career Coach DC, which we talked about. And then Essential Education has 5 different programs that you have available to you. So there's CASAS Academy, which is that intermediate level of academic skills, Computer Essentials, so if you're building digital literacy, GED Academy for those test prep folks, Money Essentials for your finance, and then Work Essentials. So these are also lessons that you could incorporate into your workforce readiness. What's nice about all of their programs is that you create a student account. They can log into it from anywhere. So if you are in person or you have, say, a computer lab available, your students can spend some of their class time or some of their job, on the job apprenticeship time, working independently on this system, and it'll track everything they do for you. So you don't have to sit there and be actively managing them. The other thing that's really nice about it is the system is built where you can assign a specific lesson, but if you just let the system do its job, it actually does introductory assessments that assign the students to just the lessons that they need. So it can be a totally hands-off system if you want it to be, where all you do is give them an account, they log in, and the system kind of walks them through, and then you can just pull up the reports and see how much time they've been putting in. It's great as a kind of homework option for folks if you suddenly have to go remote. It's a really excellent way to continue to get those hours. Uh-oh. I got a little error something pop up. So if somebody, let me know if, oopsie, there's a problem. And then Virtual Job Shadow here is another wonderful interactive tool that has really, really real world. The real. They have video-based interviews with folks, and it really is just like being right on the job with folks, where they just talk to folks on the street about what their job is like, but they also build it in this system that has all these assessments that help students figure out, okay, here's my interests, here are the available jobs, here's the training I might need to do, et cetera, helps them do that planning aspect of it. All right, so if you're interested in any of these and you're not using them already, then you can email right here to talk about how to access it for your agency. So those are these here. And then the last one is North Star Digital Literacy, which we talked a lot about this morning. So I'm just going to throw that out there as another certification / learning tool for you. In general, I also, especially when you're working with English language learners, USA Learns is a wonderful free option. Khan Academy has a little bit when it comes to humanities, not at the very low level. DC Works we talked about. Quizlet has quizzes. I mean, it's just digital flashcards in any topic you can possibly think about. So this links to their hospitality flashcards in particular. So, and other people already have created all sorts of sets of flashcards that you can use, or you can create your own and have your students create their own for free. It's wonderful. For hospitality in particular, I mentioned bridging the employment gap, and some of our other lessons through the 12 weeks do use reference pages from this On the Job from Minnesota Literacy Council that has some really great handouts and activities you can pull. And then I know YouTube can be a blessing and a curse. So to help give you something that that we know is good stuff, this Food Standards Agency has some nice short videos that progress through some of the competencies that people will need to pass any of the certification, serve safe training now, etc., for food handling and food safety. So if you can't be on the video with your students remotely, or even if you are in person, but you don't have a kitchen right there, but you're still trying to prepare somebody for food service, you can use these videos to kind of bring those environments to life wherever your students are. And we talked about ServeSafe already. All right, so I've thrown so many things at you, and so hopefully you're going to go back and say, oh, I really need a link to just that one thing. So what you are going to do, and I think that I accidentally closed it, so we're going to go back to the blog. And go back to hospitality. And in here we have our contextualized lesson plan document. And if you look at the end of the table of contents here, we have a section called All Web Links by Industry. And I also did this in each of our contextualized curriculum for the Literacy Cooperative as well. Because I know for myself, there's a lot of times like, yay, great, we went through this whole lesson plan. But you know what I really want to use is just this one thing. So, so this way you can, instead of having to kind of plot plow through all the text, you can just go to this area. Here's hospitality. And here are all the links that are available in that lesson. Ta-da! All right, so any other questions? Anything I didn't cover that you would like to know? Uh-oh. And it's saying I have bad network quality, right? So, so let me know if you can still hear me.
We can.
Yay, wonderful.
Sounds good.
Very good. All right. Does anybody else have any observations, things you want to share, resources that you've been using that you would like to share with your colleagues, or ways that you're going to use what we've looked at today? Feel free, folks, and type in the chat. You can. All right, so Betty said, I joined late. Is it possible to obtain the PowerPoint presentation? Absolutely. So where we have the PowerPoint presentation is at this website right here. And actually, I have it even in the PowerPoint presentation. There it is, blog.mustseed, MUSTSEED.org. So when you go to the blog, this is going to continue to update as we do more sessions. So if you want what we just did, you want to look at the top left, and that's going to be hospitality. And then tomorrow morning, this is going to update with, I believe, construction and healthcare. So you click on hospitality, and down here we have the slideshow you can click through, and then also the document. On top of that, Stacy is going to be sharing with you, emailing out the Word version of the document. And we also have a link to the PowerPoint itself, which I can grab right now as well. I'm going to do it just while we're talking so I don't forget. Copy. Thanks for coming, Betty. I appreciate it.
So everyone, we do have a couple of minutes for a couple of extra questions for Megan, our facilitator, or to chime in, as Megan has invited, about some other really cool resources that you're using to contextualize learning around different industries with the students and customers with whom you work. We'd love to hear about those as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I tried to pull out a couple things that I know are available to you in DC, but I know also y'all are hyper local. You know what's going on in your community and what great things are out there that you can share. So So this is a good time to do a little bit of that networking and resource sharing, if you would like. I often use the Jeopardy tune for this, but I don't know if I should anymore with all of the controversy around Jeopardy these days. Alrighty. So we really appreciate everybody taking the time out of your day to learn more about these wonderful resources we have available for you to contextualize your instruction. If you have any questions, feel free to stay on, or if you want to chat some more. But I also want to let you know that we do have coming up, here's our list of what we have coming up. Tomorrow morning, we have healthcare at 10 a.m. and the afternoon construction at 2 p.m. Infrastructure on Wednesday morning, law and security on Wednesday evening, and then Thursday morning, early childhood education. So feel free to join us for any and all of those sessions. And we really look forward to seeing how you implement these things going forward.
Thank you so much, Megan, for facilitating another great session.
Thank you.
And everyone, please join us during some of the other sessions if you're able to, or share it with anyone you know who are also providing education and training to adult learners and youth in the District of Columbia.
Yes, please. The more the merrier.
Stacy, anything final that we might need to